You paste a task into an AI chatbot, like summarize this or clean this up, and it spits out something that is, almost right.
Almost right, but not quite.
Exactly. But it's not quite what you need. So you sit there and spend the next 20 minutes fixing it. You're tweaking the tone, restructuring the paragraphs, adjusting the formatting.
Yeah, doing all the work it was supposed to do for you.
Right. You do this every single day, and somehow this revolutionary technology hasn't actually saved you any time at all. I mean, we have access to the most powerful computational tools in human history, and we're still doing the heavy lifting because the output is just a little bit off.
Well, we see this delegation gap everywhere, and that's exactly why the underlying thread we're pulling on today is so critical.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because we're looking across behavioral psychology, management strategy, and military leadership to uncover a core hidden mechanism, right?
Yeah, the whole idea of why ambiguity is secretly sabotaging us and, how we can use radical precision to fix it.
Because the malfunction driving that 20-minute editing session, it isn't in the technology itself.
Not at all. The task you assigned wasn't the problem. The handoff was the problem. We operate under this unspoken assumption that if a mental process feels easy for us to execute, handing it off should be just as effortless.
Oh, right. If I can do it easily, I should just be able to say, hey, go do this.
Exactly. But easy to execute and easy to delegate are two completely different cognitive processes. Everything that makes a task feel simple to you, the background context, the unwritten constraints, all of that lives entirely inside your own head.
Including that exact mental image you hold of what the final product should look like.
Right. So it feels like the tool is failing us, but the tool is really just exposing us.
It's like going to a human colleague is sort of like going to your local neighborhood bar. If you have a bartender who knows you, you can walk in, give a little nod, and just say, I'll have the usual.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Yeah. They know what you drink. They read your mood. They know if you want it in a tall glass or a short one. They use all that invisible context to get it right.
They fill in the blanks.
Exactly. But AI is a robot bartender. You walk up and say, make me something sweet, without specifying the recipe, and it literally hands you a glass of plain syrup.
Wow. Yeah, just straight syrup.
Because it has zero tolerance for ambiguity. It strips away all that social goodwill and unspoken context that humans use to, silently compensate for our bad communication.
That's completely it. A human colleague fills in the blanks by pulling from their experience of working with you for years. Or they take a highly educated guess that lands close enough to your expectations to pass as successful.
Right. They kind of cover for us.
Just absolutely do. But the automated system works exclusively with the words you typed. So to bridge that delegation gap, you have to engineer the request with radical precision.
Okay, so what does that actually look like in practice?
Well, there are really 3 necessary steps before delegating anything. First, you have to name the precise task. Instead of just asking for a summary, you draw a tight boundary around the exact deliverable.
So like getting super specific.
Very specific. You specify that you need a 3-sentence summary focused strictly on budget implications, written specifically for a non-technical audience. You are giving the system the exact dimensions of the box you want the answer to fit inside.
And the second step.
You have to gather the context and give them the whole universe of the problem up front.
I mean, if you hand off a project to a coworker and you know the person is going to have to message you back to ask what the deadline is or who the target demographic is.
You failed the handoff.
Right, you failed it. All of that context belongs in the original request, so they can run with it completely independently. You shouldn't be playing ping pong with basic project parameters.
Yeah, that back and forth is just wasted time. And the third, final piece of that precision is describing what good actually looks like. You have to provide a concrete reference point.
Because vague subjective measures are pretty much useless, right?
Total useless. Asking for something to be not too formal doesn't give a system or a person anything actionable. I mean, your definition of formal might be wildly different from theirs.
Oh, for sure.
But telling them to write it, like a Slack message to a peer, not a corporate financial report, provides an instantly understandable structural framework. It defines the floor and the ceiling of the expected output.
Think about asking a colleague for a weekly update. The vague version is just write a weekly update based on these notes.
Which is how most people ask for it.
Right. But the precision version is write a 5-bullet weekly update from these notes. Each bullet names one completed item and includes exactly 1 sentence on why it matters. The tone should be direct, focusing specifically on project blockers.
It's the exact same underlying task. But the first request produces a massive blob of text you spend 20 minutes rewriting.
And the second request hands you a message you can immediately copy and paste. That 20 minutes of rewriting is literally the tax we pay for failing to verbalize what we actually wanted in the first place.
It's a huge tax, and the reason human colleagues nod and just figure it out is because they actively compensate for our unclear requests. They use their familiarity with the work to hide our communication problems from us.
We never even find out that we were unclear.
Oh, because the work eventually gets done, even if we privately think the final product could have been slightly better, we miscategorize that friction as a quality issue rather than recognizing it as our own communication failure.
Wow. And then unforgiving computational systems just completely remove that human buffer.
Exactly, forcing every single gap in your instructions to show up directly and painfully in the output.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though.
Yeah.
Because this dynamic runs in both directions. If giving vague instructions creates terrible output, what happens when you are on the receiving end of those vague instructions?
Oh, it triggers a completely different kind of malfunction.
Picture being 3 weeks into a new project. People are throwing around acronyms you've never heard of.
Yeah.
A massive chunk of work lands on your desk with absolutely zero history attached to it.
A nightmare scenario.
Right. You know you need to do something, but you have no idea who to even talk to first. And suddenly, without even realizing how you got there, you're staring at a random browser tab looking at flights, or reading an article that has absolutely nothing to do with work.
We've all been there. But that random browser tab isn't laziness. Your brain hit a cognitive wall and immediately sought the nearest emergency exit.
So it's an avoidance thing.
It is a pure avoidance mechanism triggered by overwhelming ambiguity. When faced with a vague situation, the brain burns massive amounts of energy trying to map unknown territory. It's actively searching for patterns it recognizes.
And when it fails to find those patterns,
It shuts down to conserve resources. To stop this from happening, we have to identify the specific flavor of ambiguity causing the cognitive stall. There are really 3 specific types of ambiguity here.
okay, let's break those down.
Often, the first one is just a language barrier. The domain terminology is so foreign, you're essentially guessing at what the task even means.
Oh, I've definitely felt that language barrier. Or sometimes I understand the words perfectly, but I'm completely missing the context. That's the second one, right?
Yeah, exactly. The context ambiguity.
You understand the task itself, but you're blind to the 3 months of invisible decisions and debates that led up to it. Someone hands you the work because the logic makes perfect sense to them, but they left out the entire why behind the project.
Which leaves you completely paralyzed.
Right. And then there's the worst one, the third type. Ownership. Knowing exactly what the destination is, but having no idea who holds the map.
Yes. You don't know who has the authority to approve it, who needs to be consulted, or whose toes you might be stepping on to get it done. The ownership is a total mystery.
But wait, I struggle with this whole avoidance concept, though. Aren't high performers supposed to be self-sufficient?
That's the common myth, yeah.
Right. I mean, if I hit a wall with missing context or a lack of ownership, isn't digging through old chat threads and Jira tickets for an hour just part of being a high-agency problem solver? We're constantly told to just figure it out ourselves.
Actually, high-agency people burn the most time in this exact scenario specifically because self-sufficiency is their default setting.
Wait, really?
Yes. It takes them much longer to recognize when self-sufficiency is the wrong tool for the job. You can dig through old documents for an hour and end up right back where you started because you aren't actually looking for a document.
Then what are you looking for?
Your brain is desperately looking for the right question to ask. The solution, the 5-minute fix, is to stop digging and audit the ambiguity. Once you pinpoint whether you are stuck on language, context, or ownership, you can go ask a highly precise question.
Oh, that makes sense. Because a vague, I'm lost, can we sync, gets you a 30-minute wasted meeting.
Exactly. But a precise, who owns the final approval on the security protocol, gets you a 5-minute answer.
So what does this all mean when the bottleneck isn't your own understanding, but someone else's hesitation?
That's a completely different kind of ambiguity, but just as frustrating.
There's nothing more agonizing than pitching a project to a manager 4 different times, and every single time they hit you with, let me think about it, or send me some more detail.
What dreaded stalls.
Right. When a meeting ends without a decision, the immediate instinct is to throw more at the problem. We assume the idea was undercooked, so we come back with more data, more slides, more financial justifications, just hoping something sticks.
But the meeting didn't stall because of a lack of data. It stalled because no one provided a forcing function to make the conversation land.
So how do you force it without being aggressive?
This is where strategic pacing comes in. There's a tactic for internal meetings, a sort of 1 to 10 closer. Instead of throwing more information at the hesitation, you gently ask the manager to rate the idea on a scale from 1 to 10.
Just to get a read on the room.
Exactly. You frame it not as a trap, but just to get a baseline. If they rate it a 6, you don't argue with the 6. You ask 2 highly precise questions. First, you ask, what did you like about it that makes you not dismiss it right away?
Oh, that's clever. It forces them to articulate positive signals.
Yes. It's a crucial psychological pivot. It shifts the entire frame of the conversation from convince me to here is the foundation of what already works. They have to name the value out loud, which physically disrupts their default avoidance behavior.
It's like playing darts blindfolded. When a manager says, let me think about it, you're essentially throwing more and more random darts, more spreadsheets, more presentations, hoping one of them magically hit the bullseye.
Which rarely works.
Right. But forcing them to name what works, and then asking what specific piece is missing for them to make a decision that makes them literally walk over, take off your blindfold, and point directly to the exact missing puzzle piece.
That's the second question. What is missing for you to make a decision on this? And if that missing piece is substantial, say they need sign-off from the operations lead because the timeline impacts another department, you now have a highly specific gap with a name.
The power of a named reason.
Exactly. You aren't going back to prepare another vague slide deck. You're going to get that specific sign-off. Even if the ultimate answer down the line is a flat no, you have a real map. A named reason tells you if a no is final or if it's just a gap you can systematically close.
It pulls you out of the endless purgatory of, let me think about it.
The precision gives you leverage.
This instinct to hide behind vague words, though, it doesn't just happen in a conference room with a manager. It's not just a work problem.
No, it's everywhere.
The exact same ego protection ruins our personal relationships, too. Think about when a boundary is crossed at home. Imagine a family member going through your phone while you're in the shower.
That is a highly uncomfortable scenario.
Right. They read your private messages, look at your notes, scroll through your photos, all to figure out the perfect gift for you.
Oh, boy.
And when they give it to you and you realize how they knew what to buy, you are rightfully furious. But the second you get upset, they immediately deploy the ultimate, universally vague defense. I was just trying to do something nice.
Yeah, and that phrase instantly derails the reality of what just occurred. The person who invaded your privacy has completely connected their intention to their moral identity.
So they feel like they're being attacked as a person.
Yes. To them, admitting that the action of looking through your phone was wrong feels identical to admitting they are a fundamentally bad person. But this is a logical fallacy.
Because intentions and consequences are not on the same scale.
Exactly. The gift they bought you does not cancel out the invasion of privacy. You can mean well and still cause significant harm. Both of those things are true simultaneously.
But treating the good intention as proof that the bad consequence shouldn't matter, that's how accountability completely evaporates. I feel like context has to matter, though. I mean, if someone accidentally hurts my feelings because they were trying to surprise me, it feels wrong to treat them the same as someone who is being intentionally malicious. Shouldn't intent count for something in how we process the hurt?
The context explains the origin of the action, but it does not neutralize the impact of the action. The intent and the consequence coexist, but the intent cannot be used as a free pass to skip past the harm that was done.
So how do you actually fix it when that happens?
If you want to repair the relationship, there's a very specific essential structure to the apology. You have to say, that was wrong, regardless of why I did it.
Wow. Regardless of why I did it.
Acknowledging the consequence first is mandatory. Admitting the consequence doesn't erase your good intentions, but it stops you from using your intentions as a shield to deflect from the reality of the pain cause.
It completely strips away the ego defense.
It has to.
If you don't acknowledge the consequence first, the person on the receiving end stays profoundly resentful because the issue is never actually resolved. More importantly, they stay on high alert.
Because good intentions arrive without warning.
Yeah, exactly. If someone can violate your boundaries once under the guise of meaning well, they can do it again. Virtue isn't defined by what you meant to do in your head. It's defined by what you do when the negative consequence of your actions arrives in the real world. You have to name the damage precisely to move past it.
And facing consequences directly brings us to the ultimate consequence: personal failure.
Oh, man. Yeah.
When we fail, our instinct is to blur the lines, to make excuses, to lean into ambiguity so the reality doesn't sting as much.
We tell ourselves it wasn't the right time or the system was rigged against us.
We avoid looking directly at the mechanics of why we failed, because looking directly at it feels like looking directly at our own inadequacy.
I think about this visceral story of a driving exam. It's the 6th attempt to parallel park. The driver is incredibly anxious, sweating, gripping the wheel. They try to adjust the angle 5 times, and finally, out of sheer panic, they reverse way too hard, ride completely up onto the sidewalk, and instantly fail.
Ouch.
Yeah, the exam is literally over before the car is even put into park. It is a public, undeniable failure.
In a moment of catastrophic failure like that, the instinct is to spiral into shame.
Yeah.
But there's this highly effective, counterintuitive psychological circuit breaker to bad news, where you respond with a single word. You just say, good.
Wait, good. Like, I just failed my driving test and I'm supposed to say good.
Right. I mean, it isn't that failing the test is inherently a positive experience, but saying good out loud forcefully stops the emotional spiral. It forces your brain to ask the exact next precise question, which is, what do I fix?
Oh, I see.
In the driving test scenario, failing dramatically actually provided a highly precise map of missing skills.
It highlighted a severe panic response to highway driving and fundamentally sloppy spatial awareness. It is far better to get a precise map of those flaws and fix them now, rather than miraculously passing the test and discovering those flaws while driving 70 miles an hour on a crowded interstate.
Exactly. Naming the specific flaw takes the emotion out of it and turns it into an engineering problem. We often romanticize that kind of persistence and call it resilience, acting like it's an innate magical character trait that some people have and others don't.
But it's not magic.
No, it's essentially just cold, hard accounting. You sit down and do the math of your emotions and your goals. You add up the cost of quitting, which means accepting that you will never get a driver's license, period. You calculate the exact loss of freedom and opportunity that comes with that permanent surrender.
Then you compare it to the cost of trying again, which is 1 more month of awkward driving classes, another exam fee, and a bruised ego.
And when you actually name the costs precisely, the math simply doesn't allow you to give up.
The vague feeling of failure feels insurmountable, like this giant cloud hovering over you. But the precise math makes the next step incredibly obvious. You see exactly what you stand to lose and exactly what it costs to keep going.
Precision strips away our comforting illusions and forces us to act. Whether it's engineering a prompt to an automated system so you don't waste 20 minutes rewriting it, navigating a manager's hesitation in a meeting by forcing them to articulate value, offering a defensive apology in a relationship without hiding behind good intentions, or processing a humiliating personal failure, ambiguity is always a hiding place.
So the longer we tolerate vague instructions and vague feelings, the longer we stay stuck in friction.
Exactly.
So the question we all have to ask ourselves is, where are you currently hiding behind ambiguity? What is one vague friction point at work or in a personal relationship right now that would instantly transform if you forced yourself to put an exact uncomfortable name to what you want, what you don't know, or what you're actually afraid of? The precision might be uncomfortable in the moment, but it is the only thing that actually moves you forward.